we do needs to have a technology overlay on it. And therefore, we do not have a separate vertical on technology, but we weave technology into every aspect of supply chain. At the Institute, we do offer a number of certifications and education and training programs. Apart from that, we also have ISCM forums, which organizes events and webinars. Today, we are having a webinar on mapping out blockchain rollout in an automotive supply chain. I welcome you to this webinar on behalf of the Institute of Supply Chain Management and ISCM forums. And I also thank our presenting partner, Blockage. A word about Blockage. Blockage is an end-to-end blockchain infrastructure management and automation platform to build and scale enterprise blockchains of the future. This platform facilitates blockchain adoption with zero coding efforts. Blockage is headquartered in New Jersey, USA, and not only helps build blockchain networks, but also manages the ongoing operations. And today we are going to discuss a very specific application or a series of applications of blockchain specifically in the domain of the automotive supply chain. I thank Blockages for coming on board as our partners for this event. And before we start with the day's proceedings, I would like to request all my audience to keep sending us your questions so that we can take it up. All relevant questions will be taken up, and in your typing in your questions, request you to also address it to the person whom you would like to answer. With that brief, I am now would like to introduce my distinguished guests for the evening. This evening, we are splitting it into two parts of it. The first part is a panel discussion where we will talk about the mapping of blockchain rollout. We'll be talking more of the implementation challenges. And the second part of the evening, we will have with us a very distinguished blockchain researcher and specialist from Ford Motor Company, Pramita Mitra. We will have her at around 7 o'clock. From 7 to 7:30, she would be having a chat with us. And in the first part of it, we'll be having a chat with four very distinguished and I would say power performers in the area of blockchain, people who have not only worked on it, but also have spent considerable amount of time thinking about things and how to roll it out. Again, without any ado, we have with us Vilas Wakale, who is the head digitization and chief digital officer at Skoda Automobiles, a division of Volkswagen. As head of digitalization in Skoda, he is responsible for driving digitalization initiatives, including inculcating the culture of digitalization in the organization. Welcome, Vilas.
Thank you. Thank you, Girish.
We have with us Rajiv Chopra, Senior General Manager, Strategic Sourcing, Supply Chain and Program Management at TEFE. Rajiv is a die-hard supply chain professional, and he will bring his expertise of insights into how can these functions benefit from blockchain. We have with us Kumar Guru, Chief Growth Officer at Blockage, an innovative and intuitive technology executive evangelizing blockchain at Blockage. Welcome, Kumar. We also have we will also have with us Diwakar Muthu, who will be joining us in a few moments.
Girish, Diwakar here. Apologies, I was on another important meeting. I couldn't finish that earlier.
No,
my apologies. So I've joined. Just wanted to let you know. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. So we have with us Diwakar Muthu, the product manager at Ford Motor Company. His area of expertise is blockchain solutioning and architecture. And the host for the evening I am the host for the evening. My name is Girish, and I am the executive director. I'm the director of the Institute of Supply Chain Management, and I look after education and training initiatives at the Institute. With that, we will start the day's proceedings. Let me give you a brief overview of what we will be discussing. Many new technologies hold great promise in supply chains. The challenge is to identify the right technology that we can invest in. Not only should it be a right technology, but also it should be the right time. A very specific case is that of blockchain. A few years back, blockchain was supposed to be somewhere out there in the future. But suddenly they have gained a lot of interest and are set for rapid growth. What made this transition? Why do we think that blockchains today are something that organizations should be focusing on? Primarily because over the last couple of years, our supply chains have been disrupted like never before. We have seen both the demand and the supply side disruption, and we still are not over the disruption. We still today are having lockdowns in China, port congestions across the world, shortage of containers, freight rate shooting up. So we are still not out of the woods. And how does blockchain help us? Blockchain offers us solutions to growing problems of how to manage an increasingly complicated network of manufacturers and suppliers. More specifically, when what we need is transparency, speed, and agility. As consumer demand more and more transparency and complexities of supply chains increase, we need an effective way to trace the material used in the final product, right from source to the consumer and probably back again, going by sustainability and the 360-degree supply chains that we are talking about. However, there will be a number of challenges. The technology is still in the early trial stage. Industry is still learning about challenges to security, cost, and implications. And we still are trying to figure out what is the best application that we can roll out our blockchains for. With that short introduction, I would like to start off the day's proceedings by inviting each of my panelists to make a brief opening statement on how they see blockchain and where does it fit in a supply chain. If I could start with you, Rajiv.
Yeah, Girish. Thank you for a very great introduction and to set up this space for all of us. Thank you for giving this opportunity again. Companies are definitely looking nowadays to invest on newer digital technologies, which definitely promise them a robust and agile supply chain. So saying this, considering why blockchain suddenly has become so rapidly important. So I would say that they offer a solution to the growing problem, how to manage the complicacy, the networking of suppliers and manufacturers, how to build transparencies, you rightly said, speed and agility. Now, when we talk about TAFE, we have about 300 suppliers. Definitely, when we are talking about them, it's across the multiple platforms, applications, technologies, what we use in our tractors. And I say that blockchain offers a decentralized approach for data management and sharing, and bringing more speed, responsiveness, and transparency. If you say, are we using in TAFE? No, we are not. Does blockchain will bring newer advantages to us? Yes. So yes, this topic of today is a very interesting topic, and we should all discuss more on as we go further. Looking forward from all my panelists, esteemed panelists, to learn more from them. This is my opening comments on blockchain.
Thanks, Rajiv. Yes, speed, agility, and two things that supply chains today are in dire need of. Divakar, if I could invite you for your opening comments on uh, what is a blockchain and where does it fit in the supply chain?
All right. So a very happy evening to all my fellow panelists. I'm happy to be here. Blockchain as such, if we have to, really look at it, it is essentially, we call it a distributed ledger, meaning there is now, we don't have a single database, but it is kind of, spread across multiple parties so that you don't need to depend on a single database. So you have information that is actually distributed and that is available across multiple stakeholders and then multiple parties. The second benefit that it allows you is essentially where it fits an organization is, especially when you are having multi-stakeholder collaboration, or you have cross-border trade, or you have anything that is concerned with logistics or supply chain. These are all some of the areas where blockchain has seen some increased applicability over the last couple of years, especially around supply chain. The key things that are actually coming are essentially around increasing traceability of the materials that are being used in manufacturing, especially if you are using any sustainable goods, then yes, you need to ensure that the right standards are actually passed on. And having that traceability across to customers, to your end customers, it allows you to kind of build on your brand equity. The second thing is around, if you're in the contract manufacturing space or if you're the outsourced manufacturing space, it allows you to improve your visibility, because it allows you to kind of view what the suppliers are going through, what their inventory levels are, how can we plan better, all those things that can be done. If you really look at, there are also some secondary benefits we could come out. One is essentially it improves your credibility aspect, because the more transparent you are, the more agile and more information you are actually providing to your suppliers, it allows you to kind of build on that, and then it would allow you to build on your brand as well. And most important thing, what we have seen based on the prototypes or other things we have done, is blockchain allows us to have a great platform which allows us to engage with stakeholders, which we have seen is something which is very, very beneficial from an organization point.
Thanks, Divakar. That was indeed a very comprehensive introduction to what a blockchain is. And Vilas, if I could bring you in at this point in time and probably ask you, how can blockchains add value in an end-to-end supply chain? If you could also spend some time talking on that.
Yeah, thanks. So I think Divakar already explained about the concepts behind blockchain. I just want to relate with the day-to-day example. In fact, this is a small story. When I was a child, one person visited to our home. This is like almost 30 years back story. So that person had come and he was having a totally different attire, like coming with a big turban and long mustaches. So obviously he was different from a normal scenario. So I was very curious, and when interacting with him, he was focusing on two things. One thing is he wanted to know the kind of a current status about our family members, if there is any addition and any death in the family. At the same time, he was willing to share our family tree, our ancestors and all that. So that actually excited me to have more interaction with him. And then I realized that probably he's having the kind of a total history with of our family, and I was feeling really a kind of that was a royal feeling I got that point of time. Being childhood, I just it wiped up from my memory. But again, after 25 years, a similar person came to visit. I was at a different place at that point of time, but then after education and all, I could relate the old story with the today's one. And then I realized that these guys actually are maintaining our family history, and then they are maintaining generations over generations. Generally, they are called as The pandas, maybe many of us might be aware of that. But then today I could relate what they are doing is they are maintaining a family history ledger, generations over generations. And yes, I think relentlessly they are doing those activities. Now, when I relate this kind of a ledger management with our current supply chain activities, then I can see a lot of similarities between these two activities, and that's what I thought of, bringing to all of our attention. So generally, like for producing any product, what is our the goal of a supply chain management today is to involve the supply chain management wants to be involved into the design, the planning, execution, control, and monitoring of the goods and services journey throughout, so that they can add value to the final product. And who are these stakeholders we are talking here about? Literally everybody, like the raw material producer or supplier, right? Then we are talking about the manufacturer who takes the raw material from the producer and then produces his goods. Then we are talking about the distributors. We are talking about the wholesalers and retailers, and then finally the end users. So how do these people add value to the final product? So as a raw material producer, the ask would be, can I provide the origin and quality metrics of my product to a global and transparent way? So in today's supply chain, is it really possible? I mean, we take an example of diamond buying. Yes, if the details about the raw material and even the mine, if those are provided in a transparent and authenticate way, there will be more buyers for that product. Similarly, if I talk about manufacturer, the manufacturer wants to monitor the products till the final destination, especially about the raw material quality at their fingertips. Is it possible in today's supply chain management? Something we need to think about. As a distributor and wholesaler, they also have their own challenges. They want to bring trust in the entire supply chain. So at any given point of time, if they can provide that trust to the end user, there will be more buyers for that product. As a retailer, yes, they will also want to ensure that the trust is built and then there is an authenticity and certification about the product so that it can be shared with the end user. And as an end user, if I get information about the trustworthiness of the product, its origin, its quality, and then the compliances, the product, the manufacturer and the entire chain followed. If all this information is available at fingertips, then I think I will be more than happy to go ahead and buy that product, even with some premium. So these are some of the kind of stakeholders and asks from each of the stakeholders in today's supply chain management. And how do we address that? In a traditional supply chain management, I think there are challenges, and those probably cannot be addressed. Challenges such as scalability. We are talking about huge amount of stakeholders. Just take the example of the family tree. So many people are there, and then those stakeholders gets added as the time flows. Same thing happens with the supply chain as well. Performance, we want information at our fingertips, but then in current supply chain system, is it possible? Probably there are some hiccups. Consensus at every given point of time, we need to get consent from the stakeholders, and we also need to ensure that the information is not tweaked, right? Privacy also another issue probably in current supply chain management. We want to have some transactions secured and all that, but is it really possible? There is a question mark. Location, from where the product is coming, the raw material and all that. In current supply chain, I think there is no facility to provide these details. And of course, cost. Again, I will take the original example of the panda who was maintaining the family tree. He literally traveled physically to the end users like me, and then there is a limitation. Plus, there is a huge cost involvement apart from the delays and all that. The same thing happens with the current supply chain as well, that if we want to get all this information what we have been talking about, there is a huge cost involved. And all these kind of concerns probably I can say that would be addressed in today's blockchain solutions.
Thanks, Vilas. Kumar, if I could bring you in now, we heard from both Diwakar, Rajiv and Vilas on the various areas where blockchain can be used in an automotive supply chain. From an outside-in perspective, if you look at it, how can blockchain be integrated into the supply chain? Are blockchains today ready for mainstreaming? And are there any challenges to, and I'm sure that a number of organizations have already started on pilot projects, a number of pilot projects have started off. Are there any challenges in scaling adoption of this technology?
Thank you, Girish, and thank you everyone for the opportunity. So, see, from a technology point of view, right? Yes, blockchain is relatively looked at as a new technology, right? But it is not new technology. It's actually more than 10 years old, right? It is working fine, right? When it comes to the use cases like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and several financial use cases have become mainstream, right? Now, how do we take the same technology that has been very successful there and use it towards the enterprise business use cases? So that whether it is automotive industry or the pharma industry or the manufacturing and supply chain aspects, across different verticals, whether it is an automotive that we want to track, or it is a drug, or it is a piece of diamond, or it is even the groceries, right? The vegetables, how to track them from end to end, is well accepted use cases for blockchain, right? So how do we go about integrating this? I think the idea is that every time something new technology comes, right, we have to go in the cycle, right? We first innovate, we come up with something small, something new, and then we adapt, and then we improvise, then we repeat, right? I think that's how we will. I think that's how the industry will eventually take it. Right now, we have done some proof of concepts and pilots, and some limited scale production, right? So we are in the phase of that innovation, and then eventually, that limited scale will be adapted. Then it will be improvised. Then we have to go back and do it again, right? So the key here is that when it comes to integrating the blockchain technology and take it to mainstream, right? It's incremental. Being incremental is the key, right? First, we can say, hey, I want to use blockchain for supply chain. Well, that is great. Supply chain is a use case for blockchain. In fact, it is the best enterprise use case actually, but it is a very broad statement, right? So now we have to identify, the specific use cases within supply chain. Within, for example, for us, it's an automotive vertical. We have to take. Then again, you go on that innovative. How do I envision this? This single aspect of this use case into blockchain, and then involve some of the key industry participants, some of the top industry participants, maybe. Then implement that. Then over time, add more functionality. Over time, bring new people onto the blockchain network, and then over time, roll out some additional blockchain capabilities. Initially, we would want to use blockchain as a communication channel, and over the time, you add more and more, where you bring in smart contracts, for example, right, to do the work for us. So like that, being incremental is going to be the key. So is it ready to go mainstream? Yes. From a technology point of view, I will definitely say yes. I feel strongly that the technology is ready to go mainstream. However, the practicality of it, which is the blockchain is involving, by very definition, involves multiple players. Multiple players have to come on board and agree on it, which it makes it a little challenging to go live, right? The traditional IT systems, I can build something, I can implement within Ford, and then it becomes successful, and then it becomes adopted elsewhere, right? Any IT solution you can think of it that way. When it comes to blockchain, again, we are talking about an industry level solution, and some people say it is industry level revolutions, right? So now this takes time coming up with an ROI, which I feel it's obviously it is going to be a multi-year ROI. Trying to get our the business stakeholders understand this and get on board is a challenge, and then make it mainstream will happen eventually, right? So there is a technology aspect of taking it to mainstream. There are some challenges, but they can be overcome, and then there is a business aspect of it in terms of taking it to mainstream. So the both will have to come together at the industry level, right? Then we will be mainstream before we even realize it, right? And then the scaling again, when we are going in an incremental approach where we are innovating and adapting and then improvising, and then we are going through that constant cycle, then scaling will not be an issue, right? Do I think that we can take a blockchain and then scale through the entire supply chain volume of Ford or Skoda, right? Or any other automaker, GM or BMW? The answer is no, right? But when we go through this incremental process, it will be there, right? I have no doubts about it.
Thanks, Kumar. Yes, it's a very interesting, it's very pertinent that we need to start small and incremental, and as we gain confidence, we can unroll technology, because quite often what happens is that very ambitious enterprise-wide projects on new technologies are fraught with their own inherent challenges. And there will also be a reluctance by the ecosystem to accept these technologies, and therefore start small, prove it. And once the provenance is there, then you can have a faster enterprise rollout. It's a very nice and easy way of bringing in disruptive technologies.
Right.
Divakar, if I could bring you in now, I would also want to, one of our audience has also sent us a question on is blockchain solving current problems, and what is the value-added solutions that we are looking at. Along with that, if you could also handle about what are the practical challenges that enterprises face when they roll out a blockchain technology from a user perspective.
Okay, all right. So there were two parts to the question, Girish, if I heard it right. So one is, what are the practical challenges that are there if you're rolling out blockchain?
Yes.
And the second part of the question was, can you repeat that, please?
Is blockchain solving current problems, and what are the value additions that we can see?
Okay, all right. So, is blockchain solving the current problems? From a supply chain perspective, it's still an evolving space, right? Yes, it does solve certain problems, especially in the supply chain. For example, IBM recently rolled out a vaccine passport, right? Which is absolutely crucial in this pandemic world where you need that information, and especially when you consider that health information is secretive in nature, you need a platform that is secretive enough to provide that data, right? So yes, there have been some limited use cases where we have really seen some benefits coming in, especially in terms of the mining use cases that we have seen, where or for conflict minerals, as we call it, certain minerals